Hello, everyone. We're back with Ettie Zilber, and we're discussing her terrific book. But we're going to segue away from the book now, and we're going to be talking to Ettie about her work as a Holocaust educator. And she speaks all around the world. She's leaving to go to Lithuania at the end of the month. We're here in August of 2022. And Ettie, why are you doing what you're doing? You're very busy. You're working at the Holocaust, the museum in Phoenix, I assume. I hope I have that right. And you're on the board there. So tell us a little bit about what is motivating you to do what you're doing today in your retirement. Though I don't see you being retired. You're right.
No, no. Retired from earning, full-time salary, but that gives you an opportunity to do other things. It irks me to hear people talk about retirement so that they can do nothing. That's a one-way ticket, where. So no, I am engaged in all sorts of activities that I feel are significant. And the Holocaust Association and Holocaust education is just one of them. But yes, I am a board member of the Phoenix Holocaust Association. We do not have a museum yet, but the Arizona Jewish Historical Society is right now in the process of fundraising for a museum here in Phoenix. And we will definitely, our association will be linked to that museum one day. We
How
were
long have you lived in Phoenix?
7 years.
Okay.
And we just recently, at the beginning of this academic year, so it was almost a year ago, we were instrumental in the state of Arizona mandating Holocaust education in the state, in all the schools. And that was a big step forward. So then we became active in working with the Department of Education to put together curriculum and resources for teachers all over the state. And of course, there needs to be training. I mean, mandating Holocaust education is only the first step.
Mhm.
Afterwards, you need to train the teachers, and there has to be a budget, and there have to be resources. It's a long road yet. But we are active in the community. We have a speakers bureau. Gratefully, we still have survivors who go out to speak, but we have a whole cadre of 2Gs, and now we started a 3G organization as well. So we have many people who are keen to go out and tell the story and teach about the Holocaust. I think that Holocaust education is important, not just to teach about what happened to the Jews. It's important to teach about the Holocaust so that youth, adults as well, but youth can listen to a story of how things can go awry if they're not aware of their surroundings. And many times, we teach the Holocaust, we talk about hate and bullying and this and that. No, I talk about the Holocaust as being aware of your surroundings and being active in decisions that you're making. Obviously, if you're living in a democratic society. If you're not living in a democratic society, all bets are off. So I think that it is something that teaches you ethics, it teaches you morals, it teaches so much more, civics, it teaches about everything, and it teaches about what happened to the Jews. Yes. One of the things that irks me, let's say, this recent desire to cut out anything from this curriculum that has to do with what they have defined critical race theory, that has to do with ignoring our history of slavery in the United States is very upsetting. And the rationale is they don't want the children to be upset and feel bad about learning this history. Okay, that's one opinion. I bring to the fore a different set of facts. I was invited just before the pandemic, I was invited to Germany to speak at 6 different schools in Germany. 6 schools. Plus, I participated in a Kristallnacht ceremony. And I must tell you that I was so impressed with the kids at the schools that I spoke at. I cannot tell you. And these are kids, German kids, who have been taught about the Holocaust every single year. And the generation before them were taught about the Holocaust as well. And these kids are so vigilant about their democracy. It was truly a pleasure to listen to them. And I thought, this is the result of education. This is the result of education.
And how does that compare to your experience in the school that you're speaking here in Phoenix?
Well, here, a lot of the kids don't know about it, or I always survey the kids beforehand. And if they're in a school where they have been taught about the Holocaust, and there are schools where the district or the principal of a school or an active teacher has introduced a Holocaust education program in the school. These kids know a lot. And they are very, very sensitive to the topic of any kind of discrimination. They are empathetic. It develops all of these characteristics that are so important. And they're aware of what happened in World War II. And they also study about other genocides. And so I trust that these kids would never allow something like that to happen again. It's the ignorance that is dangerous. So once you arm kids with an education and information, this is what education is all about. Now, every single kid, before I give a talk, I usually send out a survey to the teacher before my talk to get an idea of the kid's background knowledge. And every time I ask the question on the survey, have you ever read or heard that the Holocaust didn't happen, or it wasn't so big as they say, and it wasn't 6 million, and it wasn't so terrible, and they're making a big deal about it? 100% of the kids said yes. That means they're hearing it from someplace and they're reading it, most likely online. So that makes it even more important for certainly survivors to tell their story. I mean, and as long as the survivors are alive, they need to tell the story. But if not the survivors, then the second generation. And I think that that right now is one of my passions, and that's why I do what I do.
Well, what you've just explained is very valuable, and the listeners who will hear this, there's a lot of educators that I know and are in the group and are going to listen to this. And I think you just gave a very valuable lesson on that survey that you presented, and I have not heard of that prior.
My own little private research study.
Well, it's now
And
public.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because when these kids Google the word Holocaust, the wrong websites come up first. They come up first, and that's what the kids are reading.
Well, those wrong websites know how to influence Google search.
Yes, of course, of course. You know that, you're a techie. And so there's got to be somebody that's going out there to counter that information. One girl in a class, she chose, this is an elective grade 12 English lit class, Holocaust literature. That was an elective. So these kids are self-selected. They went into this class and she told the class that her uncle, when he heard that she's taking a Holocaust lit class, he said, "What are you taking a class in this bullshit?" Excuse me. These are all lies. And she came and told the class that.
See, that's another very important point, because the duality of teaching young people and how they can absorb as sponges, and as you indicated, that they will understand democracy and be vigilant. It is the older generation, whether it is 20s, 30s, 40s, they have not been impacted, and yet they are having the children that are in the classroom. And so in one way, we're hitting the kids with education, but they're going home and being blunted. So maybe that girl can overcome it, but many cannot blunt their parents. And
Well,
it's
I would have to disagree with that. Surely the kids are impacted by their parents always, but I'll tell you, there are many kids out there that are impacted by great teachers.
oh, I'm not saying that.
Rah-rah for the teachers.
Well, I totally agree with you. And we're in the education business. I mean, the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is that I'm transferring my knowledge into digital education. I mean, these programs in your voice will go on for to eternity, and you will be able to see these audios forever, and it's going to be of all ages. And I'm hoping to impact a younger audience, a 20 or 30-year-old who are listening to podcasts. That's why I chose to go to this medium,
Yeah.
not for children, but for a 20 to 30 to 40-year-old who are listening to podcasts. And during my due diligence, I haven't found a podcast that feels like what we've done over the last couple hours.
Bravo to you.
Well, I don't need the bravo, but I do what I do. So my second question, and then we'll kind of wrap it. So I had the Evo Institute present to my group, and Jonathan Brent, who's the CEO of Evo, and he seems to be quite an expert. I know you have a relationship with the Evo Institute. He seems to have quite a bit of expertise around Lithuania and Vilna, and he has been researching for 45 years or something this topic. And he talked about a guy, Jonas what's his last name? Norega. And he mentioned this for the first time. It was new to me that he was that the government in Lithuania is sort of both in the denial phase, but there's also noise being made, and the government is allowing education around Noriega. But what was interesting is that there was a plaque honoring him inside the library, and then all of a sudden it got a lot of flack. So what do? They move it to the building outside and slap it on the wall on the outside of the building, not on the inside. And so it was really interesting, and that's the first time that I heard about what was going on in Lithuania and the struggles there. And I know that you are very, very active in trying to bring Holocaust education and remove anti-Semitism in Lithuania. And I know that you're working with a gentleman named Mr. Goshen, right? Or
I don't work with him. Okay. I know it, but I don't work.
Okay, I didn't know. So I know he's very active in the same area. So I want you to explore what you're doing in Lithuania and why you're going to Lithuania at the end of the month, and what are you doing there, and what is causing your impetus, to jumpstart and go and get on a plane, which is not an easy trip under COVID or any pandemic where you're going to wear a mask or not wear a mask or be conflicted about whether to wear it.
I've got news for you, Jeffrey. I've been wearing masks on airplanes for 25 years.
Good for you. Good for you. So you obviously can tolerate it, but tell us why you're doing what you're doing in Lithuania. It'd be very interesting.
Well, I'm doing what I'm doing in many countries in the world. I went to Peru. I spoke to all my students in all the countries where I've lived, whether it was Guatemala, China, Singapore, Spain. I gave talks even before I had a book. And I spoke about the Holocaust because I felt it was an important topic.
So
And
who brings you to those countries?
well, when I was living in those countries, I was giving the
Oh,
talk to
okay.
my students in my
Okay.
schools
Got it.
or neighboring schools. But otherwise, I reach out to different schools and I tell them about myself. And if they're interested, then they invite me out. Before COVID, I was flying there. During COVID, it was on Zoom, of course. And so now I'm continuing my activities. I have these connections in the international school arena. So in an audience of kids, I might have kids of, 40 different nationalities in these international schools. So I'm getting a lot of ripple effect because these kids are most likely going to be the leaders in their countries, in their respective countries. And so they will have heard this story from me. Maybe they've heard it from other people as well. So for me, that's sort of my niche. And here in the United States, I also go into schools and I give talks here in Arizona and in other states in the United States.
So speak to me about Lithuania specifically. What are you planning to do there? Why are you going?
Well, I'm going there to do two jobs. One job is my professional job, which is as a cross-cultural trainer. And my other job, I asked them, would you like me to give this talk? And they were very keen to hear about the Holocaust as well, because the administration definitely wants their students to hear the story, as well as the adults in the community. So there are a lot of people who are very interested in this topic. And I think that just like in any country, you have to separate government actions vis-a-vis individual people's attitudes, behaviors, and their thoughts about a particular topic. So in this particular case, I have met a number of Lithuanians who are very keen to have this history told, and
Jewish or not Jewish?
non-Jewish. And so that's the good news. What a government does is, every country has its government.
Mhm. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our terrific series of discussions with Ettie. And again, Ettie, if you want to hold up your book, and we'll do one last plug. It's the Holocaust Memoir of Love and Resilience, Mama's Survival from Lithuania to America. So thank you, Ettie. I really appreciate you spending all this time with me and having our audience learn so much more about you as a person. And your book has to be read by Holocaust people who are really interested to the topic. So thank you for spending the time with us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for the invitation, and it was fun.
Terrific.